They say that this all started this afternoon, just after 4 o'clock, with a shooting call to 911. And during that call, they could hear yelling in the background. They said that once they got to the scene here in this neighborhood in Buckeye, they ordered everyone inside the home to come out. They said a woman in her 50s did come out of the home. She was detained without incident, but she was the only one to come out of the home. So once they went inside to search for others, they did find a woman in her 30s, unresponsive, suffering a gunshot wound. She had been shot at least once. Exactly how many times is still part of the investigation. First responders did try to save her, but sadly she did die on scene. Police also found a woman in her 70s inside the home with a handgun near her. They believe at this point that that was the shooter. Preliminary evidence indicating this is a domestic violence incident involving a grandmother, mother, and a granddaughter who all lived in this home. At this point, no other people are believed to have lived there except for these three. Buckeye police say this is the first homicide of the year with city police, and it's been a hard day for everyone.
On December 15th, 2024, in a quiet neighborhood in Buckeye, Arizona, a single gunshot shattered a family forever. A 71-year-old grandmother pulled the trigger once. The bullet struck her 31-year-old granddaughter in the back. No break-in. No mass threat, just 3 generations of women living under one roof, and a loaded handgun close enough to reach in seconds. This wasn't a crime that unfolded in the dark. It happened in broad daylight. It happened during an argument, and it happened after police had already been called. Welcome to the True Crime Shadow, where we step beyond the headlines and into the moments that change lives forever. Before we go any further, I want to pause for a second. Wherever you're watching from, I pray that you and your family are protected, that your homes remain places of peace, and that conflict never turns into tragedy for you. And if you believe stories like this matter, if you believe understanding them can save lives, please subscribe to the channel and walk with us through these shadows. Because what you're about to hear isn't just another crime story. It's a story about family, control, love, resentment, and a split-second choice that can never be undone. So how did a woman who survived working around violent criminals lose her life in her own home? How did grandmother with no criminal history end up charged with second-degree murder? And what really happened inside that house in the final minutes before the shot was fired? To understand that, you first need to understand who Larkay Elliott really was, and why her future made what happened even more devastating. And that's where this story truly begins. Larkay Elliott wasn't reckless. She wasn't fragile, and she wasn't someone unfamiliar with danger. She was 31 years old, born in Detroit and raised in Arizona, and from a young age, she learned how to adapt, hustle, and survive. If something needed to be done, Lar figured it out. If an opportunity didn't exist, she created one. She wore many hats: caregiver, counselor, preschool teacher. On the side, she did hair and nails, sold handmade jewelry online, and found ways to bring in income however she could. This wasn't someone waiting for a break. This was someone building one piece by piece. And one chapter of her life stood out more than most. Between 2019 and 2020, Lar worked as a corrections officer at a maximum security prison in Arizona. That job meant daily exposure to violence, manipulation, and constant tension. She dealt with inmates who had nothing left to lose. Situations where a wrong move could cost you your life. And yet she handled it. She stayed composed. She learned how to read danger before it exploded. The cruel irony is impossible to ignore. Lar survived one of the most dangerous work environments imaginable, only to lose her life inside the place that should have been safest. After leaving corrections, Lar leaned into something completely different: TikTok. But she didn't treat it like a hobby. She treated it like a future. Her videos were bold, funny, unfiltered. She spoke her mind, joked about life, vented about loyalty, independence, and knowing your worth. People connected with her because she felt real, not polished, not scripted, just honest. Her following grew fast. Tens of thousands of people tuned in. Some videos reached far beyond her immediate circle. And behind the scenes, she was planning more, going full-time, leaving the traditional grind, becoming her own boss. She was also changing in quieter ways, embracing her natural beauty, learning more about her history, exploring holistic living. This was a woman in transition, a woman stepping into herself. And here's the detail that shifts this entire story. The apartment where everything happened wasn't her grandmother's. It wasn't her mother's. It was in La's name. She was the one paying the bills. She was the one who opened her doors and said, "Come stay with me." She housed her mother and her grandmother. She took responsibility. She made space for family while building a future for herself. That kind of generosity often goes unnoticed until it's gone. Because behind the TikTok smiles and motivational posts, life inside that apartment wasn't as peaceful as it looked online. And the people Lar was supporting were struggling with her independence in ways that would soon turn dangerous. And that's when tension started to creep in, quietly at first, then louder, then impossible to ignore. Because to understand what happened next, you need to look at the family dynamic behind those closed doors. From the outside, the home in Buckeye looked quiet. Neighbors barely noticed it. No loud parties, no constant visitors. Just another house on a calm street where nothing ever seemed to happen. But inside, 3 generations of women were sharing space, history, and unresolved tension. And that combination can become heavy fast. Deborah Green Davis was 71 years old school, strict, set in her ways. She believed in authority, respect, and control, especially inside her home, even though it technically wasn't hers. Her daughter, Tanisha, was in her 50s, caught between loyalty to her mother and a complicated relationship with her own child. And then there was Lar, outspoken, independent, financially responsible for the household, and openly building a life that didn't revolve around anyone else. On social media, the family looked close. Years earlier, Lar had posted loving messages calling her mother and grandmother strong, beautiful women who went above and beyond. But social media only shows what people want you to see. Behind closed doors, the balance of power had shifted, and not everyone was comfortable with that. When younger family members become the providers, it can quietly flip long-standing dynamics. Respect turns into resentment. Guidance turns into control. According to people familiar with the situation, there had been arguments before, clashes over boundaries, independence, and who truly had the final say in that home. These accounts haven't been officially confirmed, but they echo a pattern seen in many multi-generational households where space, money, and authority overlap. And then there was the bond between Deborah and her daughter. Strong, unbreakable. Some have said that closeness sometimes left Lar on the outside, feeling outnumbered in her own home. Again, these are observations, not court-proven facts, but they help explain the emotional temperature inside that house. One detail, however, is not speculation. Deborah kept a 9mm semi-automatic handgun in her bedroom, not locked in a safe, not secured away. It sat within arm's reach, always accessible. In a house already filled with tension, that weapon became a silent presence, one that didn't belong in a heated family environment. 3 women, 3 generations, years of history, financial pressure, emotional wounds, and a loaded gun close enough to reach in seconds. Love and resentment were sharing the same space. And on December 15th, 2024, that balance finally collapsed. Because when voices started rising that afternoon, no one stepped away. And what happened next unfolded faster than anyone could have imagined. Sunday afternoon, December 15th, 2024, just after 4 p.m., the argument that had been simmering inside that house finally boiled over. Voices rose in the living room. Anger spilled out. Whatever started it was never publicly explained, but it was loud enough and intense enough that Deborah heard it from her bedroom. At that moment, she did one thing right. She picked up her phone and dialed 911. The call connected at 4:02 p.m. Deborah told the dispatcher there was a fight happening inside the home between her daughter and her granddaughter. Help was on the way. Police were already responding. But instead of removing herself from the situation, Deborah stayed where she was, in her bedroom, in the middle of everything. That's when Lar entered the room. According to court documents, Lar walked into her grandmother's bedroom while the 911 call was still active and tried to take the phone away. She didn't want police involved. Why? That part has never been officially confirmed, but there are theories. Lar had previously worked in corrections. A police report, any police report, could complicate future job opportunities. Or maybe she believed she could calm things down herself. Maybe she just didn't want outsiders stepping into a private family conflict. Whatever her reason, it didn't matter anymore. The moment escalated. Lar struck Deborah, hitting her in the head and shoulder. Tanisha rushed into the room and reacted instantly, grabbing her daughter by the hair and pulling her away from her mother. What started as an argument became a physical struggle between mother and daughter. Right at the foot of Deborah's bed. The bedroom was small. There was nowhere to move, no room to breathe. Screaming filled the space. Furniture shifted. The 911 dispatcher could hear everything. Voices overlapping, panic rising. The sound of a family unraveling in real time. Deborah was still there, still holding the phone, watching her daughter and granddaughter fighting just feet away. And then she made the decision that would end everything. Sitting inside that bedroom was the 9mm handgun, unlocked, unsecured, right within reach. Deborah let go of the phone, reached for the weapon, raised it, and fired. One shot. The bullet struck Lar in the back as she was facing away, still engaged in the struggle with her mother. She stumbled out of the bedroom doorway and collapsed onto the floor. Blood spread beneath her. She wasn't moving. The house went silent. Police arrived within minutes, lights flashing across the quiet street. Commands were shouted through a loudspeaker. Tanisha walked out first, hands raised, shaking. Officers rushed inside. Just past the bedroom doorway, they found Lar, unresponsive, a single gunshot wound to the back. They carried her outside and tried CPR on the front lawn, but there was nothing they could do. Lar K. Elliott was pronounced dead at the scene. Deborah was found elsewhere in the home. The gun nearby. She didn't resist. She didn't run. She was taken into custody without a fight. But what Deborah would say later, after the shock wore off, would turn this from a tragedy into a criminal case with no escape, because her own words would erase any claim of self-defense. At the police station, after the chaos settled and the reality of what had happened began to sink in, detectives sat down with Deborah Green Davis. This was no longer a frantic 911 call or a split-second reaction inside a crowded bedroom. This was calm, controlled, recorded, and Deborah didn't deny it. She told investigators she knowingly and intentionally fired the gun. That single admission changed everything. But what she said next made the situation even worse. Deborah went on to explain that she did not believe her daughter, Tanisha, was about to be killed during the fight. Let that sit for a moment. She acknowledged that she pulled the trigger on purpose, and at the same time admitted she didn't think anyone was in immediate danger of losing their life. In the eyes of the law, that combination is devastating. Self-defense requires an immediate, unavoidable threat. But Lar was shot in the back. She wasn't charging at her grandmother. She wasn't facing her. She was engaged in a physical struggle with her mother when the bullet hit her. And Deborah's own statement confirmed there was no belief of imminent death. That wasn't protection. That was a decision. Within minutes, less than 4 from the start of the argument, a family had been destroyed. A woman with no criminal history had crossed a line she could never uncross. A daughter watched her mother shoot her child. And Lar, who had survived years working around violence, never had a chance to protect herself in the place she trusted most. Word of the shooting spread quickly through Buckeye. Neighbors stood outside, stunned, telling reporters the same thing over and over. Nothing like this ever happens here. This was the first homicide in the city that year. A quiet street suddenly became a crime scene. A family home became evidence. Lar's growing online community began to realize something was wrong. Videos stopped. Accounts went silent. A future that had been unfolding in real time simply ended. And while grief consumed the family, the legal system was already moving forward. Because just 2 days later, Deborah Green Davis would face a judge, and the charge read aloud would shock almost everyone listening. And that's when the full weight of her choice became undeniable. 2 days after the shooting, on December 17th, 2024, Deborah Green Davis appeared before a judge for the first time. By then, she had turned 72 years old. She didn't walk into a courtroom. She appeared on a screen, streamed from a jail cell, wearing an orange jumpsuit. The woman who had no criminal record just days earlier was now facing the most serious charge of her life: second-degree murder, a Class 1 felony. As the judge read the charge aloud, the reality settled in. This wasn't being treated as an accident. This wasn't being framed as a tragic mistake. The court was saying clearly and firmly that Deborah's actions met the legal definition of murder. Bond was set at $500,000, cash only. If she somehow managed to post it, the conditions were strict. An ankle monitor, no contact with witnesses, no return to the home, no weapons of any kind, no driving without a valid license. A status conference was scheduled, a preliminary hearing set. The system moved forward without hesitation. Deborah said very little. No long explanation, no emotional plea, just a quiet response to the judge. She had no questions. And then the screen went dark as she was taken back into custody. Many people watching asked the same thing. Why second-degree murder? Why not manslaughter? Why not self-defense? The answer came down to facts that couldn't be argued away. Lar was shot in the back. Deborah admitted the shooting was intentional. And most damaging of all, she told police she didn't believe her daughter's life was in danger at the moment she fired. That statement alone removed any legal shield she might have had. In the eyes of the law, this wasn't panic. It wasn't a reflex. It was a conscious choice made in the middle of a family fight. And the consequences were permanent. After the first court appearance, the noise around the case slowly faded. The flashing lights were gone. The reporters moved on. And what was left behind was silence. The kind that settles in after something irreversible happens. The family stopped speaking publicly. No interviews, no statements, just a brief message passed through officials. They were grieving and asking for privacy. Tanisha, Lar's mother, was not charged with any crime, but her life had been torn in two. In a single afternoon, she watched her own mother take her daughter's life. She was hospitalized for shock, then released back into a world that no longer made sense. In one moment, she lost both generations she was anchored to, one to death, the other to a jail cell. Deborah remained behind bars in Maricopa County, facing the possibility of spending the rest of her life in prison. Age didn't soften the charge. A clean record didn't erase the outcome. The law doesn't measure regret. It measures actions. And the weight of those actions followed her into every hearing, every delay, every night spent alone in custody. Online, Lar's absence was impossible to ignore. Her TikTok page froze in time. No new posts, no updates, just comments from followers trying to process what had happened. People who had laughed with her, related to her, and watched her growth were now reading headlines instead of captions. 20,000 subscribers, waiting for a voice that would never come back. The neighborhood returned to normal on the surface, but residents admitted something had shifted. Knowing that something like this could happen inside a home so close to theirs changed how they looked at everything. This wasn't gang violence. This wasn't random crime. This was family. And that's what made it so unsettling. Because when violence comes from inside the home, it challenges the idea that danger is always obvious. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's familiar. Sometimes it's someone you trust completely. Until the moment they make a choice that can't be undone. This case forces uncomfortable questions. How many warning signs are ignored because that's just family? How often does tension get dismissed until it explodes? And how many homes are one argument away from irreversible damage? Lars' death wasn't just the end of a life. It was the collapse of a family structure that had been holding together under pressure for too long. And the hardest part is this: nothing about this was inevitable. Because when you step back, this case leaves behind lessons that are impossible to ignore. This case isn't just about one argument or one family. It exposes patterns that play out quietly in homes everywhere, often dismissed until it's too late. When people hear the words domestic violence, they usually think of romantic partners, husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends. But this situation didn't involve a couple at all. It involved a grandmother, mother, and a granddaughter. 3 generations sharing space, history, and unresolved conflict. The law is clear on this. Violence between family or household members is still domestic violence, no matter the relationship. Multi-generational homes can be loving and supportive, but they can also become pressure cookers. There's nowhere to cool off, no neutral space. Old wounds resurface. Authority gets challenged. And when emotions boil over, the risk skyrockets. One factor made the situation far more dangerous: a gun inside the home. Deborah kept a loaded 9mm in her bedroom, unsecured and within arm's reach. Research consistently shows that the presence of a firearm during a domestic conflict increases the risk of someone dying dramatically. Once a weapon enters a heated situation, everything changes. Words become irreversible actions in seconds. Another hard truth is how fast escalation happens. This entire tragedy unfolded in about 4 minutes. An argument, a physical fight, a gunshot, a life gone. People often believe there will be time to calm down, time to think, time to fix it. But violence doesn't wait for clarity. Calling 911 was the right instinct, but staying in the middle of the conflict wasn't. Safety planning matters. Distance matters. Leaving the room, leaving the house, locking a door, waiting outside. Those small decisions save lives. When emotions are high, proximity can be deadly. There's also an uncomfortable layer many avoid talking about: elder abuse and caregiver stress. Deborah was struck during the altercation, which is not okay. But she was also living in a tense household where roles had shifted and pressure had built over time. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it highlights how unaddressed stress can push situations past the point of control. Help exists for families, for elders, for caregivers, but it has to be sought before the breaking point. And finally, the legal reality. Deborah admitted she didn't believe her daughter was in immediate danger, yet she fired anyway. That single sentence may cost her decades of freedom. Age doesn't erase responsibility. Fear doesn't undo consequences. Once a weapon is used, the law doesn't look at intentions. It looks at outcomes. This case reminds us that waiting for one bad night is dangerous. The signs usually come earlier. Raised voices, shoving, threats, broken objects, feeling unsafe in your own home. Those moments matter. Ignoring them can lead to irreversible loss. Because when the worst happens, there's no rewind button. Only grief, court dates, and silence. Lara's life, her dreams, her future, it's all gone. And her story is a reminder that the people we love, the ones we open our homes to, can sometimes surprise us in the worst way. If there's any takeaway, it's this: protect yourself, act early, and never ignore the warning signs, because the cost of inaction can be irreversible. Stay safe, watch out for one another, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous place isn't on the streets. It's inside the home. This is the True Crime Shadow. If this story moved you, reflect on it, share it, and stay vigilant. Life can change in minutes, and so can ours.